Madam President.
Senator from Oklahoma.
Yeah, let me just comment on this, the senator from West Virginia. One of the problems that we have right now is during the last administration, it was a war on fossil fuels, but a war also on, includes coal and nuclear also. And some of the damage is already done. Unfortunately, we can't come in with a ready fix now and assume that, because a lot of the generators out there had done field switching out of coal, so you can't switch it back. So I'd say it was help coming not quite on time, but nonetheless, it's here now. Let me just mention something that's very significant to me personally. I remember it was 2 years ago today. I picked up the USA Today, and in the USA Today, they singled out my state of Oklahoma and said that we're not treating our veterans right, and we were in shock at that time. In fact, the article detailed some really appalling things that were going on and were not going on in my state of Oklahoma. And there are things that the Inspector General reports during the Obama administration, we had no way of knowing it. And our veterans, we seem to have more per capita veterans in Oklahoma. And one of the reasons is we have 5 major military establishments, and Oklahoma's a great place to live. So a lot of them retire there. And so they were not getting the help that they need. And we're not getting the treatment to the highest standards that were available. And this isn't how we take care of veterans in Oklahoma. So Senator Langford and I and 2 of the House members got to work on this thing and talked to regional VA Veterans Administration leadership. And we talked to the veterans, we talked to whistleblowers, and identified 3 key problems that we needed to fix. Now, this is interesting because these are 3 problems in my state of Oklahoma, but they'd be the same thing in Nebraska or any other state because it's not just in our state of Oklahoma. The first one was the VA couldn't fire bad employees. You know, this is always a problem. You go into an organization, you find that things are not doing very well because there's 1 or 2 bad employees, and yet it takes you a year before you're going to be able to get rid of these people. And despite having identified that it takes forever to terminate an employee. Well, we fixed that in the summer, this past summer, when President Trump signed the VA Accountability Act that included our language to allow the Secretary of Veterans Affairs to immediately fire employees for misconduct or for poor performances. Now, that was successful. We did it. That's history. And I have to say that during President Trump's administration so far, he has used this firing authority for over 500 bad actors from the VA, and we're finally creating a culture of accountability in the VA, which is really having positive results. Now, that's the first reform. The second one, too many veterans were forced to receive care from VA facilities that were hours away or didn't provide specialized care. Now, this is a problem. A lot of these veterans, they don't have the capability of being able to move around and get the care that they need. So, and they didn't have the choices. So we actually had to make a change, and we did. We worked with the president and reauthorized a bipartisan VA choice program. Now, the VA choice program was great because it allowed our veterans to actually have in those hard-to-reach areas to get the high quality of health care, regardless of where they had to travel to get it done. That was a success. And then finally, after the USA Today article, we requested an accredited third-party look at the problem at our VA facilities because the previous reports from the Obama Veterans Affairs Inspector General failed to identify these as problems. Well, they denied it. And the reason, just like any bureaucracy, they don't want someone looking over their shoulder. And so they said, no, we're not going to allow you to have a third party, a company, the VA, to look into the problem that you have. And so I remember, some people are not aware of this, but in the Senate, when there's someone who's nominated, we can put a hold on them and not allow them to go through confirmation, at least for a long period of time. So at that time, the president, our current president, had nominated a person to be the attorney, the attorney general of the Veterans Administration. We just put a hold on them until they agreed to allow someone to come in and monitor the evaluation that the VA was doing of their own bureaucracy in Oklahoma. And that worked, except the problem with that is that was just a one-time authorization, and we needed to do it make that a permanent part of our structure. And I'm pleased to say that we did that. When we signed the Enhancing Veterans Care Act, it permanently granted the VISN, that's the, one of the director levels of the VA, and the medical center directors the authority to request, at their request, an outside oversight in order to evaluate what they've done. And it's just been very, very successful. It's important for the regional directors to have the authority because they have the best idea of the reality of care at their facilities. And I appreciate the work of my colleagues, Senator James Lankford, Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen, and Congressman Steve Russell. We're turned out to be a real good team, and we're able to get these things done. And we're ready to already starting to see real progress in improving the veterans' care in Oklahoma and across the country, because as we were improving the system that we had in Oklahoma, that same system could be approved in Nebraska or any other state. So we need to get our VA facilities from their current ratings to the highest standard. The highest standard rating is 5 stars. We're now up to 3 stars in Oklahoma. We were at 1 star when we first discovered this problem on that fateful day 2 years ago today in the article in the USA Today. President Trump will continue to be an important partner for Oklahoma as we continue to improve our veterans' care. His commitment to our veterans is only matched by his commitment to service members and our national security. You can't really segregate out and say, well, we're going to take care of our veterans' activities, but still say we're not going to allow our country to have the national security that they fought so hard for. And we saw that earlier this week when the president outlined his national security strategy, charting a new course for American foreign policy, leaving behind the failed policies of the Obama administration. With his national security strategy, President Trump has been clear. He's committed to protecting the homeland, promoting American prosperity, and advancing peace through strength. You ever heard that before, peace through strength? I'm one of the few that's old enough around here to remember our great president that we had that talked about peace through strength, and he had to rebuild a military after the Carter administration that was actually as bad as or downgraded as our military has begun from the last administration. Now, he's asserted America's leadership in the free world, and we saw how under President Obama, military was forced to divert resources for priorities that weren't even about defending America. He used the military to advance his liberal agenda. This led to a wasteful spending on what they called the Green Navy, the Green Bullets, the idea that climate change was the largest threat to our national security. All that's changed, and not a moment too soon. President Trump is focused on what matters, rightfully taking out things like just worrying about climate change as opposed to rebuilding our military. And he is building at a very rapid rate right now. You know, we passed the bill, the Defense Authorization Bill, and we've made a great start on this. Now, when the president came to office, our military was facing a readiness crisis. Americans didn't really understand this. They didn't know. They had not been told this. We had a biased media that didn't allow this information to get out. But as an example, our Air Force today, right now, is short 1,500 pilots, and 1,300 of those are actually fighter pilots. Only 50% of the Air Force squadrons are trained and ready to conduct all their assigned missions. You have to repeat that. Only 50% of our Air Force squadrons are trained and ready to defend America. The Navy is the smallest and least ready it's been in years. And currently can only meet 40% of the demand from regional the commanders in the field, including only enough personnel to man 6.5 of our 9 carrier air wings. Now, a carrier air wing is something that a lot of people are not familiar with. It's approximately 75 combat aircraft are a carrier air wing, and currently we have manned only 6.5 wings and are 8,000 sailors short. Now, this is an air wing. They have F-18s, they have EA-18s, they have F-35s, they have C-2As, and again, just a little over half of ours are actually ready. Now, that's the problem that we're faced with right now. More than half of the Navy's F-18s are grounded because they're awaiting maintenance or lack of necessary parts. And if you look at our Marines are using F-18s, and 62% of the F-18s won't fly. And people are just shocked when they find out about it. It's because we don't have the spare parts. Well, we're getting busy on that, and we're going to make sure that we correct these problems. The Army has said that only about a third of their brigade combat teams and 1/4 of their air aviation brigades and 1/2 of their division headquarters are currently ready. A brigade combat team consists of 7 battalions, approximately 4,500 students. I wish I'd had time to come up with a chart on this, but the carrier wings, it's one that is absolutely necessary to get to full strength, and we plan on doing that. Faced with the most dangerous threats I've seen in my lifetime, or critical gaps in our military we can simply not accept. You know, I often say that I look back wistfully at the good old days of the Cold War, where we had 2 superpowers, and the superpowers we knew what they had, they knew what we had. It's totally different now. You have countries like North Korea who have demonstrated that they have the capacity now to reach an American city. We learned that on the 28th of November when they actually demonstrated that range that would range one of our continental United States cities. Now, they try to give us a little bit of comfort in saying, well, we don't know that they'd be able to carry a warhead. We don't think they'd have the capacity to that. Well, we don't know that. And that's not much comfort. When they say we don't have the capacity to be accurate on a re-entry because of what a missile has to go through on re-entry, well, that's not very comforting that that would happen. So anyway, the NDAA, the bill that we passed, and that the President has signed into law, will be a big step forward in correcting the readiness shortfalls. And I look forward to continue to work with him on this critical process. We have a committee that's going to be that's already having hearings about the problems that we're having. We had one actually in the subcommittee hearing that I chair just this week. So we're busy correcting these problems. Meanwhile, back to our VA problems in Oklahoma, we put 2 great new directors in the VA clinics and have a level of veteran care Oklahoma is proud of. And only yesterday, President Trump signed the Enhancing Veterans Act to ensure that we continue to give our veterans the best care. They deserve it, and they're going to get it. At the same time, we're going to restore and rebuild the military as our nation's #1 priority. Our troops deserve it, and they're going to get it. With that, I yield the floor.